You're listening to The Secrets of Sacred Art, where we unearth the hidden treasures, history, and deeper meanings in religious and sacred art. We're your hosts, Alix Murray
and Kathryn Laffrey. On this, our first episode, we'll be sharing with you our journey into sacred art and what is sacred art. All right, Alix, this is fun. We're kicking off a new show, Our Adventures, where our passion, we love sacred art and talking about it. We'll talk for hours about it, but we'll keep it limited to...
We will.
Yeah, we will. So the St. Alban Psalter is a Gothic prayer book, essentially. And this image that we have, a lot of the Psalms will start with an initial letter. So they'll take the first letter of the first word of the Psalm, and they'll make it really big, and then they'll add an image to it. And the images vary. Sometimes they're stories that coincide with the Psalm that's being read. In this case, it's actually showing, I don't remember the name of the saint, but she's petitioning for prayers and mercy for the brothers in this monastery directly to Christ. So on one side, you have her in the picture with a green background showing that they're earthbound, so to speak. And then on the other side of the letter C, you have Christ with a blue background behind him. And this is showing him in his heavenly glory.
And I also like the way he's in the sea, but he's also, if you look at the bottom, his foot is coming out of the sea. So it's almost like
he cannot be contained, can he?
He cannot be contained. Exactly. So this was, and I think a lot of times these psalters had these elaborate letters to start the whatever verse it was or prayer, because they wanted it to be beautiful and elaborate.
Yeah,
which I think is great.
So kind of, having a piece of art to concentrate on while you're reading a psalm really helps focus your attention on what's being said. And Psalm 105 that this is in reference to, which in Latin starts in Confite mini Domino, which means thanksgiving to the Lord. When you think about it, here she's asking for this prayer for herself and these brothers. And so here we are. We're giving thanks to the Lord. And the way this psalm starts, I love, and I actually want to read it. It says, "Oh, give thanks to the Lord, call on his name, make known his deeds among the peoples. Sing to him, sing praise to him, tell of all his wonderful works." And I was like, we should always, start a prayer with thanksgiving.
Yeah. And also wonderful works, which is, of course, what sacred art should be.
Exactly. Yeah. So, it made me think about that. So we kind of took this, though, because that would be a lot of information to put in a little bit of stitch work, and instead focused in on the face of Christ and then that opening phrase of give thanks to the Lord. So to keep that letter C there. So I had some embroidery floss in the house. Thank goodness for my other needlework projects.
Yeah.
Did you have any in the house, or did you have to scrounge around? Or?
I had to scrounge.
I know. It was fun working through this project. Just kind of, learning how to help each other come up with colors. So here's Alix's finished work.
Yes.
And I love the way you did the radiating colors behind Christ, because it just glows. Very nice.
Thank you. Yeah. So mine is, and again, when we'll see yours, you'll see how different they are, and they came from the same base pattern. And so, so mine is a little more. I don't have the details, I think, that you have in yours, Kathryn. But what I did do is I did do a lot of blending with the colors, and what I could find, what I had to work on, was an old pillowcase, because I couldn't find anything else to work on, and I couldn't leave the house. So I found a white pillowcase and just worked with. Do you know what? So I kind of like I felt like it was like painting, and this is the thing I like about embroidering. You can take your time.
Yes.
And I'm not much of a painter. I have painted and I've done oil paints and things like that. And I'm kind of afraid of watercolor, but I'm much more comfortable with graphite or pencils and embroidery thread because I can start, like if I'm starting to run off the track, it's slow enough.
You're going.
I don't have to. It's like, oh, this is starting not to work. But with paint,
you used to surprise me every single time you go, what do you think of this? I was like, oh, I really like it. And then you go, I'm taking it all out. I'm like, what?
That's true.
Next thing you know, she's pulling out all the stitches she just did. I'm freaking out in my head going, how much more can this piece of material take?
Yeah, exactly. It actually ripped the underneath and I had to repair it and everything. I was
wow.
But that's all me. But then of course, I mean, I'm a pretty avid knitter and I don't know if it's you or my husband who insists that I like unknitting things as much as I like knitting things. But it's like, yeah. I just try to get it exactly.
Our Lady of Undoer of Knots must be one of your favorites.
Exactly. No, and I just really, a little bit of a perfectionist. But so I think embroidery is a medium that kind of really accommodates somebody who's a little bit uptight. Anyway,
this turned out beautiful. You said it went to a priest was putting it up in a confessional area.
Yes. So I gave it to a priest at the cathedral, the local cathedral, and he liked it so much that he said he was going to put it up on the priest side of the confessional because he felt like it was something worth looking at and contemplating prayerfully when he was listening to confessions, which I thought was really lovely.
I love that both of ours went on to be used in the church by priests. Because for us at that time, we weren't able to go to Mass. I felt like I was really missing the rest of my family. It's like, I missed going to church and seeing everybody. Yeah.
Yeah, it really was.
So I took my finished work and I seem to really favor bright colors, don't I?
You do. Yeah, totally different. I think, and I have to say, it is worth, I mean, I think you're going to put some links in the show notes so people can, if they're not watching the video, they can go back and take a look. And if you look at the differences in the two pieces, but yes, Kathryn loves bright colors and the sea on hers is almost three-dimensional. It's beautiful.
Yeah, I was kind of mimicking off of, again, the woman who does the embroidered icons where she always finishes everything with this three-dimensional gold framing. And it's like, oh, that works well for the letter C. So my letter C almost looks like shiny gold. And then I have the deep green. I kept that from the original image, the deep green to one side. And I have the Latin Confite Mini Domino written in the green. And then on the other side, I love the blue and the stars. So I kind of gradiated that out on the other side.
Yeah, in a different way. Mine radiates out and yours is a gradient that goes from light to dark, like into the depths. Very cool.
And then what was fun, mine also ended up in a cathedral, but mine ended up in Sydney, Australia.
See, you should have said, since it's in Australia, you should have had the photograph upside down.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. The photograph upside down for sure.
Yeah.
That was a great project to work on. It was a great way for us to get to know each other more too. Because this was fairly early on. And when we met, just a year after we'd been online.
Yeah. Because we had been kind of talking, but you know what? It was kind of interesting. That whole experience really slowed everything down. But one of the things I thought about was, how is it that I can get so excited about sacred art in the same way I can be enthusiastic about all these other realms that I really spend quite a lot of time in. And it occurred to me it's because of world building. The reason Star Trek and Star Wars and Middle Earth, I would say Middle Earth especially, can be such a wonderful place to visit and stay and imagine in and dream in and really get connected with the characters and the story is because of the fantastic world building. And of course, I would say in the Star Wars universe today, they're just
Oh, yeah.
Phenomenal,
Layers.
phenomenal in terms of world building. And it occurred to me, sacred art is world building, but it's world building in this world, and it's world building. It's telling us, it's reminding us that we're in a story. And
it's funny because it's when you're looking at Star Wars and Middle Earth and all that other stuff, you realize you're looking at a fantasy.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
When you're looking at sacred art, you realize that you're almost living within the fantasy and awaiting the reality.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Oh, you really feel like there's something more out there. And if you really see beautiful sacred art, you realize that there is a bigger, realer story.
Exactly. and and I think it's something where we, especially nowadays, well, I'm not going to say especially nowadays, because there's a lot of sacred art that was produced for thousands of years that is really amazing and beautiful, and it still draws us in. And I think one of the beautiful things about sacred art is we can be in a really painful, scary, difficult place. And whether it's personal, whether it is cultural, or in our, something that's just happening in the world that we might not have a lot of control over, and you can get bogged down in that. But what sacred art does is it reminds you, hey, you're in a story. You're in a beautiful story. Yeah. Don't forget that. And I think my best comparison, I guess, to that would be, when Frodo and Sam were heading to Mordor and things were pretty dark, and they were I think they were literally just lying in a ditch somewhere in the Deadlands. And Sam looks up at the sky, the night sky, and he sees the constellation of Beren on the ship with the Cimmeril on his head. And he starts to think about that story. And then he realizes, and he says to Mr. Frodo, that story is still going on, and we're in that story. And I think that is something that all of this sacred art, when you know what you're looking at, when you know what you're listening to, or when you know what you're walking into,
yes,
you're still in this story. It's an amazing story. And so, that's something that we want to be able to share with people on this podcast. And we just started, and I mean, this is going to sound, I can't emphasize this enough. But you and I know how the kind of conversations that we have about Star Wars and Star Trek, and we just had one yesterday, but we have the same enthusiasm about sacred art. And I think anybody who really loves that world building is going to find this fascinating, because it is fascinating. And it's
a lot of that world building is actually based on the world building from the church. The music, the structures, it's all in there. You just gotta, once you see that one thing that really, gets your interest, go ahead and keep looking, because you're gonna find it. Yeah. And then it's gonna keep pointing to that bigger reality.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that is something that, in a way, I would say we kind of have flattened our ideas of this world. And the difference between, shall we say, hardtack, as Gimli used to, complain about, or cram. Sorry, it was called cram, like hardtack, in Lembas, which has lots of different levels to it and stuff. And so sometimes you might feel like I'm just walking around in this kind of flattened world, but when you look around, and you can see what these artists have been putting out there for such a long time, the world starts to really open up, and the dimensions of this world really open up to people.
Yeah. I suppose we should let people know exactly what sacred art is.
Yeah, what are we talking about?
Sacred art? Yeah, sacred art talk.
Exactly. So, well, I was thinking about, so I have a couple of ideas or some things that I wanted to mention. One being The Spirit of the Liturgy by Pope Benedict XVI of happy memory.
Yeah,
And
if anybody's looking right now, there you go. This
there
is
you go.
always with me.
Good for you.
Love that book.
Great book. And he of course defines very nicely a way of looking at sacred art, although it's not limited to what he said. It's not dogma, that's the thing. But also, I think we'll put this in the show notes, or I guess you will, because you're the techie one. But goodness. But you sent me a really great article, and I'm just pardon my my paperwork here. So this is from the Liturgical Arts Journal, and it's actually a really wonderful essay written by a 20th century Benedictine monk from Germany. It was written in 1936, and he's Dom Albert Hammenstetter. And he talks about, I kind of wish we had him on the show.
The past. The people from the past
Exactly.
on the show would be fabulous.
Exactly. Wouldn't that be so cool? Oh my gosh. But
Fra Angelico, please.
I know. Wow. All these different, different ones that never sign their names, and to go and find those artists. But he does this fantastic essay on liturgy as art. And I think between these two men, they really have nailed what the purpose of sacred art is. So it's not necessarily one style or another, although I think I do agree with Benedict XVI on identifying some really definitive styles that are sacred art, but defining what sacred art is supposed to do. And so I would just encourage people to read. It's a short article, and but I will say this. Well, anyway, I'll save it. I want to hear what you have to say about Kathryn is such a good teacher, so she can tell us. No pressure, Kathryn. You can tell us kind of some of the different aspects of sacred art, and maybe to help people get an idea of what it is.
Yeah, the best thing to think about with sacred art, it's architecture, art, obviously, paintings, drawing, sculpture. Well, maybe
visual
not
art,
painting and sculpture. Yeah, the visuals, and then music is in there also.
Mm-hmm.
And sacred art should be all working together, set apart for God. That's what sacred means. It is solely meant for God, and it is our offering back to God those gifts He's given us. For the sacrifice of the Mass. This is all set apart for Him. That's why a church is a church. The cathedral's, it's set apart for that one purpose. And it's not something that we're going to all, use, we'll put all the pews away and bust out the basketball hoop. No, it's not set apart anymore. We want that sacred space.
Yeah.
So it's good to have those little set apart, and it's all interwoven with the liturgy, which goes beyond the Mass into the liturgy of the hours.
Yeah.
And it's all interwoven together.
Yeah. And it all flows from one place, and I think also there's a public aspect to sacred art. And that means it's something that is accessible to people.
Yes.
I think a lot of times, and actually this was not an accident, where I think nowadays you do have certain styles of art or movements that are very inaccessible to the average person or somebody who's not in the know. We want people to be in the know for sacred art because they have a right to be in the know, and it was always meant to be accessible and understood by a vast majority of people. And so that is something that so when you have that, there are certain
Here, while you're talking, let me put up an image here so people can see.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. So there needs to be because there's going to be that public aspect to it and accessibility to people. There really does need to be. There's certain elements that really need to be there at all times, and because that. So in other words, some universal elements in it, and this is what
we are Catholic universal, right?
That's right. That's right. And Dom Hammarstedt calls it. He didn't make the word up. It's a German word, so my apologies if I'm not that great at pronouncing it. It's been a while. So it's Gesamtkunstwerk, which means a synthetic art form for a universal character. So there are going to be parts of it that are going to make sense to us wherever we are. It's a language. It's a universal language. So do you want to, shall I talk about the first image that you have up?
The first image is on your side of the pond. That's
right. So this is the Shrewsbury Cathedral, and it's the smallest cathedral in Britain. And it was designed by Hugen. So if I'm going to describe this as best I can, so this is a crucifix. It has Our Lady on the left-hand side and St. John the Evangelist on the right. And it's a carved crucifix, and it's quite heavy. Look, it's strange. It's like heavy but light at the same time. And I think that's
because it's free hanging. A lot of people don't see free hanging crucifixes. Usually they're up against a wall. This one's just free hanging from the ceiling.
Yeah, and I do think that adds to the lightness of it. Not light as in shallow and lacking depth, but light as in it really draws the eye up to the crucifix, especially when you have the elevation of the host, because it's right there. The host is there. And then you look up at the sacrifice, and so visually, it's really in sync with the liturgy, and so, and you can't really see here, and I can't remember. This is going to sound so bad. It's been a while, and I don't want to say the wrong thing because there's a pattern on the cloth, the loincloth on Christ, and I can't remember. I want to say it's a fleur-de-lis, but I could be wrong. So
I think it was. Yeah.
Really? Okay. Well, if you say that, and if it's wrong, then blame Kathryn.
We'll have to just go see it again.
We'll just have to go see it again. Yeah. But the other thing is, the cross itself is like a garden. It's radiating. It has flowers on it, and it's just this. It's almost like it's bursting with life, which of course.
We're going to have to do a whole show just on different crucifixes because there's so many beautiful designs out there.
Yeah. And this one is, some people look at this and they go, oh, I don't like it because, Jesus looks, like he's dying. It's like, because he's dying. But, it's like this. He's not supposed to be like buff Jesus on the cross. I don't know. You can see the suffering, but it's beautiful at the same time. And again, this sacred art is to kind of encourage you to say, it's through the suffering that the beauty comes, and that's what it is. And of course, artists know that. You've got to make some sacrifices and some suffering if you're going to make something beautiful. And
now at this church, you have the opposite problem that we had. Your cross is very beautifully prominent, so everybody can see it.
Yeah.
And the other picture I put up here is the Reredos from St. Patrick's, a little farm parish that I go to. I believe it's one of the oldest wooden churches that's still standing in the state of Michigan.
When was it built? Do you know?
I think this is the third edition of it, but I know they just celebrated, I think they had 150th anniversary of the parish itself. So this building's probably just over 100 years old.
Okay.
Yeah. And the Reredos actually was rescued from another church originally they didn't have one this tall. And this, basically, it's the high altar, and then behind it, it almost looks like a soaring church on top of it, another little castle with. We have St. Patrick in the middle, since the parish was founded by Irish immigrants. And then we also have St. John the Baptist and the patron saint of altar boys, St. Dominic.
I know who you're talking about. I can't remember.
Something with an S, I forget. But anyway,
yeah,
I'll have to look that up and put it in the show notes. But our crucifix is a smaller crucifix. It's made out of gold and white marble. And against the white of the reredos, it was being lost. And people kept asking, Father, why don't we have a crucifix? He's like, we do. It's right above the tabernacle.
Yeah.
And, it's right there. And he's like, I'm always elevating the host right in front of it. And after Mass, I approached him. I said, you know what? It's getting lost. We have a sea of white there. Can I make some curtains in liturgical colors to go behind the cross? And so in this picture, we have the purple for Advent and Lent that hangs behind the cross, and it really makes it stand out. And a lot of people were happy to have that there. And then the green for ordinary time actually matches in the stained glass window. There's St. Patrick in his green chasuble there. And so I made it so it matched that. And there'll be a red one up for Pentecost that'll bring out the reds from our stained glass windows.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's nice that it was saved. It's nice that it was rescued. That's the other thing. A lot of sacred art needs rescuing, I think. So, yeah.
So more types of sacred art. We talked about architecture a little bit. And this other image is also from your side of the pond.
It is.
So we have beautiful vaulted ceilings from the oratory.
The oratory in Birmingham, which is where Tolkien grew up. So there's a really, lots of connections there. And
you can tell what inspired his world building.
Yes, absolutely. And absolutely did. In fact, the priest who essentially raised him and his brother, he was the inspiration for Gandalf. And I believe the Oratorians used to have like a little retreat house. This is before Birmingham became so built up, obviously before World War II. Really before World War I, now that I think about it, since this was where Tolkien would go as a child. And I think it was called Rivendell. So that's so cool.
Neat.
But anyway, yes, so this is the oratory in Birmingham. And we will be doing a show on this place because it is amazing outside and in. There's so many things here. And the oratory
and the acoustics are incredible.
Yeah, yeah. But the oratory itself was a secret. So we'll just go into that later. We'll have to do. But so we have the vaulted ceilings and the mosaics in that place are just beyond amazing. It's just
Every
amazing.
Little side altar. Oh, it just takes you to a new place.
Yeah. And you can go in. What I love about the oratory is talk about going into another world, talk about world building. That whole place is just, it's alive with symbols and beauty. And then the music is kind of okay too, isn't it?
Oh yeah, the music is the organ they have in there, and I have up here with this a picture of Saint Cecilia, the patron saint of musicians, because a huge aspect of sacred art is music, and it's amazing the effect music has on you.
Yeah,
when you're sitting in a place like the oratory where you can just hear it rolling off the walls, and it helps to move you. What's happening here. You've all watched movies. If you've ever seen when people do funny video clips and they take a dramatic moment from a movie and swap in some goofy song, and all of a sudden it just doesn't have the impact that it did, even though it's the same words, the same people,
the same actions, but the music. That is a great analogy because it does make a difference. And even, they're so talented, they'll even do pauses so you can hear the the echo, as you say, rolls through the building, and then they start something else. I mean, they know what they're doing there.
Yeah.
They really do.
Oh yeah, we're gonna definitely talk a lot about music, and we'll have to probably get a few musicians to join in and maybe interview some of the great new writers that are out there.
Yeah.
And then one other element of sacred art we have is just the vestments and all the furnishings and all the little details that you might not think about that all go into pointing us toward what's really happening at Mass. And so I put up here a picture of another chalice, Paul, that I made with the Agnus Dei on it. This priest particularly asked for it to mimic a stained glass window he had seen, where it shows not only the Lamb of God with the blood pouring from his wounded side, but also has a shell pouring out the water of baptism. And so he really liked having, both sacraments in a way, thinking of the new birth of baptism along with the Holy Eucharist. And I love making the chalice balls because I'm making a piece of art that's going to be looked at primarily by a handful of people close up.
Yeah.
And in particular, the priest. And it's like, when I'm working on my prayer, it's just that this helps to guide the priest in his prayers while he's saying the Mass. Yeah.
And
yeah. So
no,
I
it
liked
is,
how
and
he actually had it kind of match with his chalice. I didn't even
did
know
you
what
plan
his
that, or
did not plan that ahead of time, but he was kind of saying, I really like the dark blue. I really like that gold band around the outside, and his chalice that he put this with for the picture that he sent me. Beautiful gold chalice with some inlaid enamel images that also have that deep blue background that I like to use in almost all my backgrounds.
Yeah. No, it's beautiful. And even sometimes when you do have things that are quite, they don't have to be the biggest and flashiest things. Sometimes, and that's the other thing, when you go into a cathedral or, as a, if you're going to be as a tourist, or if you're going in to worship, these little nooks and crannies, they really are there to draw you in. And it doesn't have to be this big dramatic thing. It could just be this one little thing, that touches you, that you can connect with. And I've been into a couple places like that, or, little, saints, hidden in the corner, this little saint, and you go, oh my gosh, what are you doing over here?
I actually saw a little gecko carved into this beautiful vine work over the arch of a door.
Nice.
Like, oh my gosh, I never would have thought I'd seen a gecko. That was so cute.
I know. See, it's just the details, because the better the world building, the more you can understand the story.
Yeah. Draws you in for the art and stay for the service, stay for me.
Exactly.
So we get beyond like what's used for Mass. There's still other types of art out there that help people focus their prayer life. And really grow in the faith, because we're not in Mass 24/7.
No.
But we have to be out in the world, and we need those reminders to keep us going out in the world. And so we have religious art.
Yeah. So here we go. So we have a couple of examples of religious art. So the first one is, I guess I should tell people, I am also a lay Dominican, and I get my formation and everything down at Oxford and at Blackfriars. And it's a really, there's just, my fellow lay Dominicans are really a lovely bunch of people. I really like them. They challenge me.
They keep you sharp,
challenge
that's
them.
for sure.
They keep me sharp. And because if I'm not making sense, they sure gonna let me know. And hopefully I'm there to encourage and challenge them as well. So the formation there is 4 years, and at the end of 4 years, you take your final vows, and it was a little bit delayed, like everything else in the world. But I finally was able to make my final vows last year, and to commemorate my final vows, and also to commemorate the 800th anniversary of my order. I thought that I would do a little something to help me in my prayer life, remind me of my vows as a lay Dominican, and so I did this piece of embroidery. So it is. I don't know how many people know the story of Saint Dominic, but before he was born, his mother dreamt that she gave birth to a little black and white dog, who then, I guess, presumably jumped off the bed, grabbed a torch, and ran out into the night. And she woke up, and I guess she was like, "That was weird." And so she told her confessor this story. And he said, "I think this child is going to be very special." And so that was St. Dominic, who started off as an Augustinian monk. But when there were certain really, really troubling heresies, I suppose they're all troubling, but these were particularly troubling. The Albigensian heresy was really spreading through Spain and France. St. Dominic felt called to go out into the world and to really evangelize and teach people the truth. And so he started one of the first of the two mendicant orders. And so his peer, I suppose, in all of that was St. Francis. So St. Francis was working in one end and in one way to bring people back to the truth of the church, and St. Dominic was working in another way. So our symbol for many, many centuries has been this black and white dog carrying the torch of truth. And so my black and white dog is based on a couple of things, a plate that I found in Poland that I really liked, and my lovely boxer, and my lovely golden retriever. So the body, if you look at the body, it's definitely a boxer's body. And he's kind of got a fat nose, and that's my golden retriever's nose. And the torch is really represents all of the Dominicans, all of my fellow lay Dominicans. And each flame is different. And the background it's a white and black dog on a black field. And the torch represents truth, and it's illuminating truth throughout the darkness and confusion. And that's what we're supposed to be doing as Dominicans. So, and Kathryn held my hand through this. Yes, be a light. And so Kathryn, it was very encouraging and held my hand throughout a lot of this, because I'm like, I'm never going to finish, Kathryn. I'm never going to finish. Why did I even start this? And
and several undoings and redoings and undoings.
Yes, yes, there were. And but I finished it up and got it framed, entered it into a contest, and it was an international contest that Kathryn and I both were in, and we both got we both made the finals. Yeah, we didn't win first, second, or third, and that's okay. Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. But this is a contemplative and prayerful piece of religious art. So it's not sacred art. But for me as a Dominican, it reminds me of my vows and to take them very seriously and to look at all of the different flames as they come together in search of truth, and to not be afraid to preach the truth. That's what we're called to do. As Catholics, I understand, but particularly as Dominicans, you got to kind of take that to hand.
A little image in the middle here, because we know each other well enough to know that we like praying with art. And, we have a picture here of our little gift exchange when I finally got to head over to England and meet you. Yeah, I brought a little small icon of the image of Mary and Jesus as was seen by Sister Lucia. And this is what kind of really spurred on the first Saturday devotions. And I wanted Alix to have this, as she's a mom and has has two daughters, and so we all know about being moms and praying for our kids. And I really thought this would be nice for her prayer space, and we all pray for our families all the time. And then you gave me a sweet little book here that you found at the local bookshop, the old bookshop.
Yeah, Iron Bridge Bookshop. It's just, my daughter works there, and she's good at finding these little treasures in there. So she found this one. Yeah.
Yeah. And I love old books like this. It looks like it's from what, the 1920s or earlier?
I think it is from the 1920s. Yeah. And it really does go with your style. It's
yes, I do.
Something that you're clearly drawn to. Yeah.
Yeah. Probably because I grew up with my grandmother loving to read old books to us. And I love the illustrations in old books, especially around that time period. Yeah. Then the last piece we hear is actually a painting done in the 1800s, and it's of Fra Angelico being visited by angels. And I love this painting. I have it hanging in my studio for me to look at because he's painting a crucifix and crying.
Yeah. And Fra Angelico, he was a Dominican, and do you know what? So much of his stuff is ubiquitous to out there in the culture. So I would encourage people to look up some of his work. Beautiful, beautiful work that you can tell how he contemplated, and he painted his pieces for his fellow Dominicans to help them in their prayer life. And he was a humble man. There is a self-portrait of him, and he was late Gothic, and I think he's a saint. I might be a little bit biased.
To us, he is.
Yeah, he is. He's wonderful, and just the humility and willing and love for God, and also in turn for his creation. And when you look at his stuff, it really is. You can see that it comes across. So anyway, so that's one level.
Creation, that kind of ties into another type of art that we have that brings us just outside the threshold of the door, so to speak.
Yeah.
And
oh gosh,
we have that threshold periphery art. Yeah, Alix, put you on the spot there with one of your own sketches from what's behind you.
It's like, if you look behind me, then you can judge how good or bad a job did I do. But yes, so this is called threshold or periphery art, and it doesn't have particularly religious sub-theme or subject. But I think what does make it peripheral art or threshold art is it's something that draws you in. It's all about communicating and having you reflect something. So this background, I did this sketch a couple of years ago, and it was just something quiet that I did on my own, and I did it in my dining room, and it makes me think of family and home and a cozy life. We've had lots of happy moments in this dining room, and some exciting ones now. Never thought I would kind of be doing this, but so this is a peripheral art, but I think it is something that all these different vessels. This is what Kathryn brought up. That all these different vessels, and they're all kind of standing and working together, and I just liked the way they oddly just fit in together and made sense together. And I'm
trying to figure out which one of those is Donald, your tall Scottish husband.
I know. I'm trying to think of, nowadays I've got this one. Well, it's on this side. It kind of looks like a chicken, but it's not. That's not him at all. I would say the big blue pitcher, which I think is someplace else in the house now. But or even the glug jug. Actually, that one. A story about that one. But so it just, to me, it represents, I love art. I love pottery. That's my big obsession. And so this is threshold art. So it's something that's nice, makes you think of, there's a dignity there, I hope, And next to my sketch, let's move quickly on to something that is really nice and beautiful, is an owl. And it is, I believe this might be, I don't know what medium this is. I think it might be like watercolor, but I don't, or
seems
ink.
really soft. Yeah.
Yeah, by Albrecht Dürer. And it is, I call it the little Grogu owl, because he looks like Grogu. Minus the ears, he's very cute. And just a beautiful rendering of an animal, something in creation. And I think when we talk about threshold art, as opposed to a lot of like what is threshold art versus like art? Mm-hmm. So I think it needs to have, it needs to communicate the dignity of the creation, whether or not it's a living thing or something that somebody else made, or a tree or a rock, a landscape painting. There needs to be the reality of that dignity. And you could take a photograph of an owl and it could be super cute. But I just think there's some element of this piece that Albrecht Dürer made that you can see he's acknowledging the creator.
Yes.
That's and it draws you in a different way. It doesn't push you away. I think sometimes we have, there's art that's shocking. It's there to shock and to offend or to titillate, but it doesn't draw you in. And threshold art draws you in, and it draws you in a little bit more and a little bit more. And that's what we want. So these are the art pieces that we're going to be looking at. So now, Kathryn, why don't you talk us through these two pieces of threshold art?
So I'd say for most of my art career, I've been on the threshold. And it wasn't until taking classes at Pontifex that I really thought I even had the ability to move into sacred art. And that's part of the reason why I joined Pontifex, was I wanted to do something more. It's like every time I did a painting, and most of my work was wildlife paintings. I had studied under a local wildlife artist when I was in high school. And so I was like, okay, I love animals. I love landscapes. This fits me. And that's how I've worked most of my career. But I always felt like there was something more. And I have two paintings here. One of them is a blue heron walking across a bunch of dried fallen trees along a riverbank. And the amazing thing is when I'll start out working on one of these, especially the heron, it just was really odd. And this was probably God nudging me toward doing sacred art, was all of a sudden I just started hearing Ezekiel. I'm like, why am I hearing Ezekiel when I do this? Mm-hmm. And sure enough, it would have been within a few days of that at Mass, we're hearing from Ezekiel and the dry bones. And I'm like, okay, now I see what you're saying. So this painting's actually named Ezekiel 37. And this heron walking among these dried out, bleached out trees that have fallen over. And very subtly in the heron's feathers around his neck, you can see that the wind is blowing. So it kind of trying to get that feel of the breath of God going across the dry bones. And then the other painting I have, my dad used to be a district manager, take lots of pictures of wildlife for me when he was out driving all over Michigan. And this is a huge bull elk, and in Michigan they get really big. And when I started painting this one, I kept going, no, there's something in the Bible about like a deer or something like that. And sure enough, in the Song of Songs, you have that feeling of like my loved one, like being like a gazelle coming to me or at a stream. And so, this elk was actually looking for his loved one, which my dad didn't realize was on the other side of the road. And thankfully the elk didn't go through his car to get to the girl on the other side.
Yeah, because, love is strong.
Love is strong. Yeah. So that's what I did here for my periphery art and being on the threshold. And it's fun now to take that and step into the bigger world of sacred art. And my animals still show up in there. I mean, the Lamb of God and all that
Yeah.
fun
And isn't
stuff.
that nice? Yeah. We were just laughing. We were going through some of these pictures and we're going, wow, we've got a lot of animals in there. And we do like people,
Yes.
but I think we're more, we kind of really like animals as well. They're kind of
Yeah.
a big part of our life, But so I guess I'm just thinking now, everyone has been so patient listening to us. And what is it let's talk a little bit about what we really hope to do with this podcast, because, we're just starting out. I mean, Kathryn is a seasoned veteran, of course, of the podcasting world, but, this is.
You might have heard me on Secrets of Star Wars.
Exactly. But me, no, I'm all new to this. So, so this is going to be a journey in lots of different ways. A journey with us as we continue to pursue this master's degree and all of the art that we're going to be working on. We hope to share that with our listeners and bring them
every time
along.
I learn something new, I got to tell somebody.
Exactly. And there's so much, but so we want to invite people on this journey, and it's like so cool. I love to. There's nothing better than listening to somebody who has a passion for something that I have a passion for. And I'm just thinking about, I love I could listen to stuff about Star Wars and Star Trek, and I do actually for hours. But it's the same with this. And we really hope that this is a new world that people might not be aware of, or they might just kind of know there's something there that they're missing. And we want to help them. We want to open up the bigger world to them in sacred arts.
And it opens up your prayer life in a new way too. And you can actually look at these images while you're praying. You might be sitting in your church and never realize that your stained glass windows are the mysteries of the rosary. And you've been sitting there praying the rosary all along, and you look up and see, well, there they are. And they're in the order I'm praying. You can start turning and looking toward them.
Exactly. And not only that, but also, and then start seeing the influence in the society that all of these things have. There's so much, and yeah, so that's something we want to share. But then another side of it, that what we want to do is we want to talk about the artists, past and present, and also to inspire people who are artists, not necessarily religious or sacred artists, but maybe get some artists to really start thinking about how they're using their gifts and their knowledge. And that doesn't mean like, stop doing what you're doing and go and paint a church, but start really thinking about what it is to be an artist and how to start creating real beauty in the world. And that doesn't mean nice image, like a scene. Oh, that's a nice scene. That's a lovely scene. No, that's not what we mean. Beauty is truth. And it's something, again, that is so hidden in the world, and people are hungry for that, and they're hungry for beauty. So we want to inspire some artists maybe to start rethinking or even encourage them to keep doing what they are doing. They might be on the right track, and they might need to hear someone go, yeah, you're on the right track. That's what we needed. That's what we wanted. And so that's another thing. And then also, one day as we gain listeners and our listeners get a better understanding of what we're trying to do, we want them to kind of start showing us what they found out in the world. So we want to,
if you discover something, show us.
absolutely show us. And also, and this is the other thing that we're looking forward to, is some of these places have some really interesting things hidden in them. Histories, stories that are just beyond fascinating. Oh, yeah. And so we have some that we've discovered ourselves, and we're still in the process of discovering. And, it's just, there's a lot out there, and we want to bring everybody along. So that kind of leads us on to what our episode 2 is going to be about, Lindisfarne. And that is the Holy Island in Northern England. And we're going to talk about what we discovered there. And it was really something we weren't expecting. We were going to Lindisfarne because it is an amazing place to go. And
don't give away too much.
I'm not, but but we discovered something really cool there. And so if you want to know what we discovered, you're going to have to listen to episode 2.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, we definitely need to thank our biggest supporters, our husbands.
Yes.
They help us out all the time.
I know. Our
They're much more
long-suffering
technically savvy than we are.
Yes. Yeah. And encouraging as always. They're just, they're both great. Next time they need to, you need to bring your hubby over. And yes, so we would like to thank Stan L. and Donald M. for all of their support for us in this podcast, even today.
Today, yes. Even getting started today.
Exactly. So thank you very much. Yeah. And if you would like to support our program, please go to sqpm.com/support.
Yeah. All right. Well, this was wonderful. And it's so much fun to always talk about art and get excited for the next journey. So until next time, I'm Kathryn Laffrey.
And I'm Alix Murray. And hope you find something beautiful.